So, welcome to the World Climate Summit, Day 2. For those who were with us yesterday, you're now part of the family. And for those who are joining us for the first time, it's such an honor to have you here. I'm Matsi Modise. I am the Africa lead for the World Climate Foundation. And looking forward to today. I think yesterday was very robust. It's a conversation, interactions around solutions, because this is the implementation COP. What better place to have it but being in the heart of this beautiful country with its beautiful people? I think what is also inspiring is having the indigenous people of the world, not just from the Amazon, coming and sharing how everything emanates from within and how we have to connect with nature. So it's such an honor, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Looking forward to incredible speakers. I think we as the World Climate Foundation pride ourselves in the caliber and the quality of people that we bring along through this journey. The organization has been around for more than 15 years, before climate was sexy and exciting. So we really are about impact and implementation. We are a global organization. We have an office in Asia. I'm the Africa lead, so we have an office in Africa. We have an office in London, and our HQ is in Copenhagen. So we're very global. There's great representation from the global north and the global south, and it's how it all comes together. I'm very excited to introduce our first keynote speaker for the day. His name is Dan Ioschpe. Flora, am I saying it correctly? Ioschpe. And very excited to have him here because he's a COP30 high-level champion. And climate champions are a dynamic bunch of human beings. They work to mobilize ambitious climate action from business, cities, regions, and financial institutions. If there's ever one thing I would one day want to be, maybe in another world, is a climate champion, because these are true ambassadors of all the work that needs to be done. So without further ado, I would like to call upon stage Dan Ioschpe. If you could give him a warm hand of applause.
Good morning. Can you hear me well? Good. Thank you, Matsi. As I understand, you are from South Africa. I'm not sure you would like that much this high-level climate champion position, but I'm glad you're favorable about it. But talking about Africa, just before I go into my formal statement here, the best part of being a high-level climate champion this year has been meeting people around the world and trying to understand how we can speed up and scale up climate action. And in Africa was an amazing time, more on the northern part of Africa and Ethiopia with the African Summit, but also with the friends from South Africa and so many countries there. And we are trying as much as possible to integrate all of those voices and needs and amazing projects so that we make this mutirão, as President André Correa do Lago has proposed, a very effective one. But thanks, Jens, for the invitation. Living along with the World Climate Foundation also this year has been very important. Jens and his team has this very extensive experience, which for all of us having to prepare and to try to lead this cycle here in Brazil is the utmost important thing, to have very experienced and balanced and knowledgeable people on the matter. That's usually what makes the utmost difference on any endeavor, and is the case here. And thank you very much for Flora as well. Not only because of her knowledge and expertise, but because she is the effective mayor of Belém throughout this year. So thank you so much. But esteemed guests, colleagues, and friends, It's really a great honor to join you here today at the World Climate Summit as we meet here in Belém at this crucial moment for implementation. And as I've been saying around, if I could only say one word, implementation. That's really what we need to do, and it's all very much available for us as long as we get organized, effective, efficient, productive. We can really deliver and implement a lot. Brazil wanted to make the COP30 a call for a global mutirão. For those that don't know the word mutirão, is where we all go together in the same direction, each one with its own tools, capabilities, but in a very collectively organized manner. That's what we are trying to come forward to implement, again, as I mentioned before. And to accelerate climate action, we restructured the action agenda to align with the outcomes of the global stocktake. So maybe a very interesting move done this year, we connected totally the global stocktake defined by the parties over time with our daily lives, which is the implementation and how to get those solutions and projects going on. And that connects governments and society in a very effective way, which was what we're searching for. The action agenda bridges high-level ambition with real-world implementation, setting measurable objectives across 6 areas: energy, forest, agriculture, cities, human development, and finance. But I can tell you that it's everything that you can think about really has to fit, because the global stocktake is our roadmap to get to the objectives of the Paris Agreement, wherever we need to go, whatever we need to do. We already know that no single sector or country can solve the climate crisis alone. We need to bring everyone to the table. The World Climate Summit is doing just that, bringing together businesses, governments, civil society, philanthropy, finance to forge new coalitions and unlock collaboration needed to scale solutions. A powerful example of collaboration and partnership was launched last week here in Belém, the Tropical Forest Forever facility, endorsed by now by 53 countries and backed by around $5.5 billion in commitment, which is great, but it's really just the beginning. This historic initiative demonstrates how partnerships and innovative funding can move forward climate solutions in support of nature, people, and economy. And as much as I am a person from the business sector, the industry, as our CEO of COP30, Anatoni, correctly says, it all starts with people and it all ends with people. So in all of those flows of initiatives, people is always the center, as to say. Partners are already contributing to hundreds of initiatives who are now part of the COP30 granary of solutions. Our bank of solutions show what implementation looks like, where progress is advancing and where collaboration is needed to make the biggest difference. The task for all of us, from boardrooms to city halls, is to speed up implementation, focusing on those projects, investments, and partnerships that create the biggest impact. We know what works. Now we need to multiply it. The COP30 action agenda gives us the framework to align governments, investors, cities, regions, and communities around concrete solutions. We can accelerate this transition together. Count on the COP30 leadership, either the Brazilian presidency, UNFCCC, the Climate Champions team, to move forward with everything that you see as relevant, as much practical, pragmatic, on the ground as possible. Really dealing with details at the end of the day is how we will manage to speed up amazing solutions and initiatives that are out there. At this point in time, we are working with more than 700 initiatives within the action agenda. They cover all the themes that you could think about. They could cover hydrogen, sustainable aviation fuels, maritime fuels. They can cover halting deforestation, degraded areas, agriculture, food systems, early warning systems for cities, water, waste management, and so forth. And of course, all of the financing aspects like TFFF, carbon credits, de-risking, insurance, blended finance. So please challenge us, get close if you're not yet, and let's make sure that we really have a highly populated action agenda that talks to all of you, and that over the next 5 years we can make a significant difference to get close to the Paris Agreement targets, which is our effective mandate. So thank you very much. Have a great day, and hope to see you around Belém during COP30. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ioschpe. I think it's a much anticipated COP. The whole year we've been waiting to come to Brazil, and we are finally here. So thank you so much for that opening address. Can we give him another hand of applause? Fantastic. So on to our next keynote address. I have Captain Paul Watson, and he's the founder of the Captain Paul Watson Foundation, Canadian-American environmental conservation and animal rights activist. We welcome you from the World Climate Foundation, and we look forward to your address. Pleasure to meet you, sir.
While it's a pleasure to be here, I know the Japanese government calls me an eco-terrorist, but I assure you I've never worked for Monsanto or Mitsubishi, so I'm not. One of the problems we have is, and you know, I've attended these conferences, Stockholm in '72, Rio in '92, COP21 in Paris, and the one thing that they all had in common is nothing happened. It's been a lot of talk and a lot of paperwork, a lot of promises, but nothing has materialized. And I think the reason for that is simply how we view the world. We live within this collective form of mass psychosis called anthropocentrism. What that means is we view the world as it's all about us. We're the dominant species, we're the only species that matter, everything else is irrelevant. We need to learn from indigenous cultures around the world a way of looking at the world from a biocentric point of view. What is biocentrism? The understanding that we are part of the world, that we are very much related to every other species on the planet. There are three basic laws of ecology. The first is the law of diversity, that the strength of an ecosystem is dependent upon diversity within it. The second is the law of interdependence, that all species within an ecosystem are interdependent with each other. And the third is the law of finite resources, that there are limits to growth and a limit to carrying capacity. And when one species steals the carrying capacity from other species, it leads to diminishment in diversity and interdependence, and that leads to ecological collapse. And that's where we're heading if we don't find a solution. But we're not going to find a solution if we keep going on this anthropocentric delusion that we humans are going to solve the problem. I received a call a few years ago from a reporter for the Fox News Network. It's not really a news network, but anyway, they called me and they said, did you say that trees, bees, worms, and fish are more important than people? And I said, yes, I said exactly that. How could you say something so outrageous? Well, they're more important than people for a very simple reason. They can live here without us, but we cannot live here without them. We do not live in a world without worms and bees and trees and whales and fish. We simply don't. Since 1950, there's been a 40% diminishment in phytoplankton in the sea, 40% diminishment of a group of aquatic vegetables or aquatic plants that provide up to 70% of the oxygen in the air we breathe. If phytoplankton disappears from the sea, we all die. It's as simple as that. And why is phytoplankton disappearing? Because we're diminishing the nutrient supply to phytoplankton, nitrogen, iron, and magnesium. And where does that come from? Whales and dolphins and seabirds and fishes. They provide those elements that provide for a healthy phytoplankton population. And we're diminishing in all those species, and because of that, we're diminishing phytoplankton. Right now, down in the Southern Ocean, Norwegian and Chinese vessels are taking krill out of the mouths of the whales and the penguins to feed to domestic salmon on domestic salmon farms, an incredibly destructive industry. So they're taking 620,000 metric tons. That's what they took this year. They went over the quota. They want to take 1.2 million metric tons. There's no real, exploration as to what the impact that is going to be. Let's just take it out. It's all about profit. It's all about us. We have to feed the world, and we're going to feed them on cheap salmon that has been raised on this cheap protein paste that we get from taking the krill out of the Southern Ocean. We've been reducing the number of whales over the years. Finally, they're making a comeback, no thanks to Japan, Norway, and, Iceland hasn't killed whales for the last 3 years. But we've made a lot of progress. So over the last 50 years, we've reduced whaling by 90%. The countries that have dropped out of whaling include Australia and Peru and Chile and Brazil and South Korea, Spain and the Soviet Union. But still, there's two holdouts, Japan and Norway. And they are criminal enterprises. They are killing whales in violation of international conservation law. They are, as judged by the International Court of Justice in The Hague. They are criminal enterprises, yet they come after me for trying to stop them, accusing me of being a criminal. But what I did in 1977 when I set up Sea Shepherd, it was with a specific strategy, and that is, I call it aggressive nonviolence. What does that mean? To aggressively intervene, but without causing injury. And in 50 years, we've never injured a single person, we've never sustained an injury, we've never been convicted of a crime, and we've never lost a civil lawsuit, because we use the laws that have been established but not enforced, the UN World Charter for Nature, and now coming up, the High Seas Treaty on the Protection of Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdictions. We're going to be using that. We need to test these treaties, and the only way to do that is in court. They need to arrest us. They need to arrest us and get us into court so that we can defend ourselves using these international conservation laws. It's the only way to test them. And nothing is ever accomplished without people taking those kind of risks. So I've been willing to take those risks for 50 years. I will continue to take those risks, because without taking risks, we're not going to solve the problem. We're not going to end the destruction of this planet because of greed and self-interest, and because we are so fixated on this idea that we're the only species that matters. And we simply are not. And unless we actually find a way to voluntarily look at the world in a different way, then the world is not going to be very, very nice to us. The planet is not going to be nice, because once we have an ecological collapse, it will be a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. And we can make movies about it, but the reality is far, far worse than any movie that's been made, any dystopian movie that's been made. The reality is far worse. We lose certain key species, it all falls like a house of cards. And that possibility is on the horizon. We need to deal with this, and the only way we're going to deal with it is by changing the way we view the world. Thank you.
Captain, thank you very much. I think your passion, your pragmatism, your activism definitely resonates with us, and thank you so much for those great insights. Well, up next, we have an address by Joseph Huang, who's the chairman of E.Sun Bank. He's not here with us in person, but definitely with us in spirit. And in essence, we're going to show an address that is recorded.
Bon dia. Hello, everyone. I'm Joseph, chairman of E.Sun Financial Holding and E.Sun Bank. COP30 is being held in beautiful Benin. The Amazon's rich diversity reminds us to cherish nature and act for our climate from many perspectives. Today, we will share how E.Sun is weaving a web of harmony between justice, nature, and community. Let me start with a picture of Taiwan. Our island is a global leader in semiconductors, producing over 60% of the world's chips. Taiwan is small but diverse. Mountains rise to nearly 4,000 meters within a short distance from the coast. We have heavy rain and frequent earthquakes because we sit on two tectonic plates. This dynamic landscape gives Taiwan its energy and resilience. This July, Taiwan's eastern region, Hualien, experienced its largest landslide ever, creating a massive barrier lake. In September, typhoon rain caused it to overflow. Within 30 minutes, flood water equal to 6,000 Olympic pools rushed down. Thousands of people were forced to evacuate. Such events remind us that climate action must be urgent and inclusive. E.Sun was named after Taiwan's highest mountain, symbolizing our goal to be the best bank in Taiwan. With assets of about 140 billion US dollars, we work through our bank, securities, venture capital, and asset management subsidiaries to protect our planet. We need a stronger tiger web of action, one that connects justice, nature, and community. First, climate action through justice. A resilient healthcare system saves lives in disasters and protects vulnerable people. Since 2023, E.Sun has signed sustainable healthcare MOUs with 18 major hospitals. We also send volunteers for disaster recovery and offer flexible repayment plans to help affected customers rebuild. Climate change hits remote and indigenous communities hardest. 11 years ago, E.Sun launched the Malawi project in Hualien's Nan'an community. Through guaranteed purchases, we help balloon farmers shift to organic farming, reducing economic risk and creating fair participation in sustainable transition. The Malawi project empowers indigenous farmers as leaders in climate action. They contribute their traditional farming wisdom, blending native crops like August beans and marigolds into rice fields to enrich biodiversity and strengthen resilience. They are not only participants, but guardians and innovators of sustainable change. So far, nearly 20 hectares have converted to organic fields, and local schools now teach food and agriculture to the next generation. Next, climate action through nature, shifting from carbon-based to nature-based financial services. E.Sun's farm-to-table program supports eco-friendly farmers and connects them with sustainable buyers. Hotels and restaurants that choose certified green ingredients enjoy exclusive financial services. This link producers and consumers to create harmony between industry and the environment. We also direct funding to nature-positive activities through biodiversity-linked loans and OECD-linked loans. These financial products encourage customers to prioritize biodiversity conservation in their operations. Together with National Taiwan University's experimental forest, E.Sun is co-developing a methodology for alpine restoration biocredits, aiming to measure biodiversity gains and support future certification frameworks. Next, climate action through community. Since 2021, E.Sun has led 5 years of ESG initiative, raising awareness, setting targets, and building transition platforms. We connect business, government, healthcare, and academia to promote sustainable progress across society. This year, we focus on talent and technology, promoting green skill and AI to accelerate sustainable growth and resilience. We also united industries to drive collective impact. In 2023, E.Sun joined hands with 5 leading financial holding companies to form a coalition that promotes sustainable finance and accelerate the net zero transition of Taiwan's financial industry. This year, we also partnered with Taiwan's largest energy company on a biodiversity MOU, turning community advocacy into industry commitment. Starting locally and looking globally, Asia is rich in biodiversity and experiencing rapid economic growth. In partnership with the World Climate Foundation, E.Sun will take a leadership role in the Natural Investment Coalition, working with finance, government, and academia to advance climate finance collaboration across the region. As Dr. Jane Goodall reminds us, everything is connected. Every choice we make, every life we touch. Let us weave these connections with justice, care for nature, and the power of community. Together, we turn threads into bonds and create a resilient web that holds hope for our Mother Earth. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, obrigada, Mr. Huang. And I think what I love is the passion for community, the passion for working together, because everyone has a role to play. Believe it or not, you can all have a role to play towards ensuring that the world is a better place. I would like to also acknowledge our team that is physically here from E.Sun. They did come and they are representing, so we're grateful to have them here. And also identified that they are championing our Nature Investment Coalition, because we're not going to achieve this by ourselves. It's important that we are a collective. So thank you very much, E.Sun Bank, for being a valued partner of the World Climate Foundation, and that was a very inspiring keynote address by Mr. Huang. Up next, I have the proud honor and privilege of asking Dr. Harvey Locke, a dear friend of the foundation and the vice chair of Nature Positive, and he's going to share some of his inspiring insights around some of the work that he's been doing. And what I like, Harvey, is that it's a community, it's a family, and it's all a combination of efforts over the year. And the consistency is something that we really, really admire. And we thank you very much for being part of this community with the World Climate Foundation. Welcome, Harvey. Good to see you.
Morning, everyone. This is a remarkable time. It's a time of deep concern, and it's a time of opportunity. And I wanted to give a little perspective on how environmental policy goes over time. I know there's a lot of concern that the world's biggest economy is not even here. Environmental concerns have gone in waves over the course of my life. I was young in 1972 when was the first Stockholm conference that Paul mentioned. Deep concern, rivers on fire, we've got to gather, we've got to do something. Clean energy law, clean water laws are passed, clean air laws are passed, endangered species laws are passed. Ministries are created for the environment around the world. Fantastic. Then there's a decline. Through the late 70s and into the 1980s, the wave goes down. And business as usual, let's keep going, Reagan, Thatcher, all that. Then, in the late 1980s, hole in the ozone layer, concern about the climate, suddenly Bush and Thatcher are concerned about the environment. And 1992 happens with the Rio Earth Summit, and we get a climate convention. we get a biodiversity convention, we get a desertification convention, and massive concern about sustainable development, and it looks really good. And then it goes down again, the wave falls. And then the trough of the wave is Copenhagen, where the World Climate Foundation was born. What do we do about this going so badly for the climate? Then the wave rises in Paris. Suddenly there's massive concern about the climate. There's people marching in the streets. There's a global agreement for the climate. That energy carries into Montreal and the Convention on Biodiversity and the Global Biodiversity Framework. And if those two things were implemented together, as they finally say they want to after recent decisions, we would actually make huge progress towards solving the problems that face our planet. But now we feel it's going down again. So I'm going to tell you what I think this is. This is an opportunity. If you think of those waves as ever-shortening intervals, because things are going to get worse and worse and worse, and the wave is going to get bigger when it goes back up. Our job now is to build the big surfboard that rides that wave to some place worthwhile, where we actually solve problems. And we don't wallow in despair when we're in the trough. We get ambitious. And just like a surfer, surfers don't chase the first wave that comes along. They wait for the big wave for the ride to the beach. So what might that look like? Well, if we imagine ourselves in the climate system, the climate system by definition in the convention is the interaction of the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, water, geosphere, the earth, physical geology, the biosphere. The atmosphere, the biosphere, the hydrosphere, and the geosphere, and the interactions among them. If we think holistically about that, and then we imagine what that might mean in what are called normative terms, a nature-positive, carbon-neutral, and equitable future for humanity. Imagine that as a unifying vision. And then imagine the deeper understanding that the economic system is embedded in the Earth system. And the economic system is embedded in human society and is only there to serve human society. It has no other life. It has no other purpose than to serve humanity. And humanity does not live without a healthy planet, full stop, period. As an absolute iron rule. We are dependent on the functioning of the earth, full stop, period. So if we imagine thinking about these things in an integrated way, let's shift to the Amazon, since we're in the Amazon right now. When we think about the Amazon as an environmental problem, so we worry that it's the destruction of the forest leads to biodiversity loss, that we worry that if the forest collapses, we have a carbon release. We worry that if the forest collapses, it causes harm, irreversible harm to indigenous cultures who are rainforest dependent. Those are all big reasons enough for me to be motivated about the Amazon for a very long time. But they haven't actually resulted in an effective level of action. But if we reimagine the Amazon in terms of how it functions at this level, of how it affects all of us, well, the Amazon generates its own rain. This is an extraordinary thing. It's called the flying rivers. The Amazon forest generates the rain not only that keeps the forest alive, but that actually drives the economy of Brazil and Argentina and the industrial heartland of Latin America and the Sao Paulo region. That rain comes from the Amazon. It comes from the number that is used most frequently is 80% of the forest must remain standing or that rain is at risk of stopping. If that rain stops, there is a catastrophe in Latin America. The breadbasket of Argentina and Brazil, among the largest in the world, fail. Rainfall that fills reservoirs to generate electricity, fail. The knock-on effect on pension funds, on big investment funds around the world is catastrophic. The number one importer of that food is China. You don't have just a price shock, you have an absolute food supply shock. This system is too big to fail in straight economic terms. So let's imagine it in economic terms for a moment. What do you do if you're at risk of something really big? Well, you think about it and you probably buy insurance to hedge some of that risk, and then you also do something about reducing that risk. Right now, the economic system is bearing all this risk and not doing anything about it. If we bring this all together, we can imagine something like insuring the Amazon, bringing the resources together to prevent the loss and also to provide some payout to people who are bearing this risk all over the landscape. If we reimagine the scale, if we think big, if we think holistically, then we can achieve the world we want, the future we want. And if we don't, if we just continue to think in a fragmented way, and oh, aren't these nice problems, and isn't that too bad? And those tree huggers like Harvey, I know they're sad, but there's a real world out there called the economy. If we continue to think in that way, this is going to not be a good century. But if we bring it all together and think of the system and how we stabilize the system in our personal, economic, healthy interests, as well as the interests of the people who are there. And if we imagine the people who are looking after that rainforest as people who are providing a vital service to humanity and the economy, we can reimagine how we solve this problem. And I'm so grateful to the World Climate Foundation for having been a leader and recognizing that nature and the climate are the same topic. That when we talk about these things, we're talking about the same thing, because the climate system is the interaction of all aspects of nature. Yes, we need to reduce fossil fuels, absolutely. And we must consider how the system works, because if the climate system isn't working, we won't achieve our climate goals. But we can, and we will. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harvey. Thank you for that. We can, and yes, we will. It's a challenge and opportunity of our lifetime, and I think we're all signing up for that. Just show us where to sign.